welcome everyone to Films with the Women in My Life. My name is Brennan, and joining me tonight is my girlfriend Nicole.
Hello, everyone.
And tonight we will be reviewing Shazam. Shazam is a new comedy superhero movie out in theaters right now. It's by the DC universe, so the not DC. As good. Yeah, so everyone loves their Marvel films, and they're 30
There's a
Marvel
selective few that have chosen DC instead.
Can you think of one DC movie you've ever seen? I a lot of times ask.
Yeah, I saw the one with Bane, the Batman one with Bane, and I saw the Batman one with the Joker with Heath Ledger, R.I.P. So I have seen a few. Thank you.
So the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises, and actually those are the last two DC movies I've seen. I have not seen anything since they started trying to compete with Marvel with the universe.
What else has been out since then?
Well, so their first foray into trying to create their own universe was the Superman movie, Man of Steel. And then they also made Batman v Superman. Aquaman's part of that universe. Justice League they made. Wonder Woman's part of that universe. I have not seen any of those movies.
Suicide Squad. Wonder Woman. That was shit. And then I saw Suicide Squad.
Really? You didn't like Wonder Woman? Most people... Suicide Squad, most people agree with shit. But
I'm so about female power, but that movie was so boring, so...
You did see Captain Marvel. Is Captain Marvel better than Wonder Woman, in your opinion?
Yes. 100%.
Interesting.
I think that Gal Gadot is probably one of the most beautiful women on this planet, but that movie was just so terrible. It just really brought me down.
Well, before we get too much hate from all of the people who like DC movies, by basically shitting on it for the first 2 minutes, I'm going to go over the plot summary of Shazam. We all have a superhero inside us. It just takes a bit of magic to bring it out, and in Billy Batson's case, played by Asher Angel, it's by shouting one word, Shazam! This streetwise 14-year-old foster kid can turn into the adult superhero Shazam, played by Zachary Levi, courtesy of an ancient wizard. Still a kid at heart, inside a ripped, godlike body, Shazam revels in this adult version of himself by doing what any teen would do with superpowers. Have fun with them. Shazam sets out to test the limits of his abilities with the joyful recklessness of a child, but he'll need to master these powers quickly in order to fight the deadly forces of evil controlled by Dr. Thaddeus Savannah, played by Mark Strong. So that is your plot of Shazam. That about sum it up?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. If I could tell somebody about this movie, it would pretty much be that, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more definitely going on with the other foster kids that we meet along the way. Before we get into that, this is a movie directed by David F. Sandberg. This is his third feature film. He directed the horror movie Lights Out, and he also directed the spin-off of Annabelle Creation. So 2 horror movies prior to Shazam, which I wouldn't have guessed. This is not in any way a horror film. This is pure action comedy.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different. So before we go any further, if you haven't seen Shazam, it's out pretty wide right now. It's probably the biggest release this week. And yeah, we're about to spoil everything about it, and there's a good amount to spoil in this one. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. So what we do here at Films with the Women in My Life is we review things on 4 criteria, and those are the plot, the characters, the visual and sound, and the overall resonance and feel of the film. So, starting with the plot, Nicole, what did you think of the plot of Shazam?
Okay, so I'm not one to particularly care for a superhero movie, but this was so different than any other superhero movie I've seen that I have to give this plot a 4. I thought it was so endearing, really like catching to a bunch of different audiences. I was engaged the whole time. I laughed the whole time. Like, if they made this a comedy, yet still gave the idea of what they were going for. So I really appreciated this movie. I thought it was great. The plot is that this foster kid, gets sucked into this realm that many people have been sucked into before since the 70s. Like that's where we begin, is in the
I think
70s.
it's been really for a really long time, but yeah,
Yeah,
the first movie
definitely.
gets in the 70s. But
Hmm.
yeah, go on.
There's this wizard that's trying to find the most wholesome human being to take over his role. And they finally find it in this young kid who's been in and out of foster homes, running away, doesn't have a family, and to be able to give this kid so much power and so much energy and to make him feel so engaged in his life. Like I was so into it. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was great the way that they had him interact with other family members of this foster family he was in, and to be able to be his own person, like and to turn into Zachary Levi, which we'll get into later. But him being able to be his own thing and to gather the feelings from other foster family members, it was so great. I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you here. I think this is for me. It's also a 4 for the plot. It's a little bit conventional at times, but it's done really well. There are a few. There's a big thing at the end I didn't see coming. We'll get to at the end of the movie, but it's pretty conventional, but it's done really well. So it's not it doesn't fall into the pratfalls or that. So I'll start how the movie starts. We start in kind of a flashback, kind of a prequel to the whole thing, a prologue. We start in 1974, and a little kid with glasses getting tormented by his older brother and his dad, and they're driving to see family. And they're kind of poking fun at him. He's rolling this magic 8-ball around because he wants, to not be a little wimp. This is Thaddeus, and he is the first one we see get transported to this other realm where the old wizard Nicole talked about, played by Jamon. How do you say his name? Jamon Hansu.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Jamon Hansu, who is this really old wizard, and yeah, he's looking for the pure at heart. The enemies, which we haven't talked about yet, are the 7 deadly sins.
Okay, there's my downfall of this plot. Like, I don't know how many particular movies we could ever go through in life with the 7 deadly sins as the main focal point. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. I would like something different, I guess I could say.
Yeah, I don't know if this is based off a comic or not, if the 7 deadly sins played a part in that. I wouldn't have a problem with it if they had been able to make it completely conform to the whole thing they were doing and make every 7, because that's a task. Like the movie 7, that's a movie that makes every 7 deadly sin feel
Well, they
like.
do it well. Yeah, this completely lacks. What, 4 of them? Like it was just really kind
Yeah,
of thrown in
it
there.
only highlights about half of them, and the other ones are just kind of like. And I will admit, so these 7 deadly sins they're personified by these at beginning, these statues that are like kind of beast demon looking. They got like horns, and they're kind of humanoid, but they have glowing red eyes, and they got like fangs, and they're trying to convince all of the people who Shazam brings to the wizard castle lair, whatever. The sins are trying to convince them to grab this ball of energy that will unleash the 7 deadly sins and use the user as like a host, kind of. So Shazam's plan is, I'll have them be tempted by the captured 7 deadly sins, and if they fall victim to one of them, or however it works, then they're not worthy, and I will not give them my Shazam powers.
Isn't Shazam a movie with like Sinbad the Entertainer in it? Isn't that's a whole big meme?
No, so that's part of your favorite thing, the Mandela effect. There is no movie called Shazam with Sinbad. I don't know if you meant to do that. We've been drinking all day, by the way, listeners. This is the drunkest we've ever done a review. We were sober when seeing it, but now we're trying to recall everything. No, Shazam is not. You're thinking of Kazam with Shaq.
Stop. No, Shaq was never in it. It's Sinbad the Entertainer.
No, Shaq. Shaq is in a movie called Kazam, where he's a genie that grants wishes to kids. But a lot of people remember Sinbad being in a movie called Shazam, where he's a genie granting wishes to kids. But that's not the case. That's never been a movie. So,
oh my god.
Yeah, so that's a nice example of the Mandela effect.
That's such a thing.
I don't even want to talk about that. That's a whole other thing. Talk about the Mandela effect in this. I'm sure that's probably come up because a lot of people think probably
it's
have thought of that.
playing with people's emotions. I think that's why they did that. They titled it this because people already have preconceived notions.
The character was actually. Do you know the original character's name before the character was called Kazam in the comics?
No.
I was just seeing. Kazam was originally called Captain Marvel.
Shut up.
I'm not kidding. Captain Marvel was originally Shazam.
Handle.
DC made Captain Marvel, and then there were rights issues, and Marvel got, in the end, the name Captain Marvel.
Well,
I know it sounds stupid, but I know it sounds stupid, but that's really how it went down.
Oh my
so they
God.
renamed their character Captain Marvel to Shazam, and here we are.
Oh my God.
So, so the first kid gets sent away. We fast forward to the future where we meet Billy Batson, who is our protagonist, 14-year-old kid. His whole side plot is that he's looking for his birth mother. We see a flashback of them at a county fair. He gets separated from her with a little, a little totem, a little compass.
It's a little compass, and
and he was like, find your way to me, and he gets lost, and this whole first bit is him searching. He runs away from his other foster parents. He gets these new foster parents who have...
Oh, and the thing that we appreciate about this is that, I don't know how many people know this, but we are from the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, and this is set in Philadelphia, so this kind of tugs at our heartstrings throughout this whole movie. So
I don't know if tugs at the heartstrings exactly,
it does for me.
But we recognize they're on the Rocky Steps, and I've been to that corner of wherever and wherever, and those do seem like people in Philly. SEPTA looked a little clean. The subway
too
system
clean.
looked a little clean for
there
what
was
we're
no
used
guy
to.
jerking off in the third row of the SEPTA.
Yeah. Although I did appreciate we'll get to that in a little bit. So he gets put in this new foster family, and we meet all of the other foster children. The main one is Freddie Freeman, played by Jack Dylan Grazer. And he, for people who don't know the name, he was Eddie in the recent It movie, who is the germophobic guy who's freaked out by the leper, and that's him. So he plays this talkative, smart mouth, loves superheroes, I guess, foil to our protagonist, Billy.
He looks like he's been in things for 20 years. His face is so familiar.
Except he's, I think, 15, so that's not quite possible. But I know him from It. I don't know what else. Yeah, he looks like someone who, the annoying side character who you kind of like for some reason. And you meet the other siblings. There's the youngest the youngest sister, Darla, and she is super talkative and really wants to be in everyone's business, but is also very loving and wants to welcome him immediately. She immediately calls him his brother, even though they're just meeting. She's clearly how do you put that? The friendliest of the foster kids.
Oh, she's so welcoming. She just wants him to feel included and just loves the fact that he is even here to be her other brother.
Yeah, and then you get Mary, who's the oldest sister. She's about to go off to college. She's smart. She's kind of the leader of the kids de facto before Billy gets there. We don't get a whole lot of her. And then the other kids who don't get as much, we get Eugene, who is the little Asian kid playing video games the whole time. And he's pretty funny. I like him. We get Pedro, who is he's a shy, really overweight kid who doesn't interact with anyone else.
But they all play their respective role in this, especially when you get towards the end. Nobody is left behind in this movie.
No, the way they wrap, and that's something I didn't see coming. When we'll get to that towards the end, how the whole family plays in, and what I liked and didn't like about that. But so we've pretty much introduced all our principal characters. The only other one is the main antagonist, Mark Strong, who plays Dr. Thaddeus Savannah. We learned pretty early on he was the kid in the flashback who got turned away by Shazam for not being worthy, and he has been dedicating his life to trying to find other people who have been taken there and use this information to get back there and to, I don't know, get his revenge on the wizard.
Well, he wants to know why this particular person was chosen as like the wholesome, all loving person, and why he was the antagonist of this, why nobody ever loved him.
Right, because his father's mean to him, his brother's mean to him. We find out in like in that flashback that the father like broke his legs permanently after a car crash because he distracted them when he was like, "Oh no, take me back to the Shazam world."
All with the magic 8 ball, which I loved. I love that they used that as the
the magic 8 ball was a cool
yeah.
little thing. And you think it's Shazam's work, but it's actually the 7 deadly sins. So when he gets back there, he frees the 7 deadly sins because Shazam is all old and weak, the wizard, and they are like smoke creatures that fill him up and then throw the little ball of energy into his eye, and now he has an eye energy ball, and he becomes our main antagonist. And that's pretty much all your principal characters. As far as the characters go, on a scale from 1 to 5, what do you think you'd rate these characters?
I think I give these characters like a 3.5 to a 4. What is it? 3.75. Okay.
We're getting real exact now.
3.75. I really liked the character of Shazam, Zachary Levi, and the child Billy that he plays. I think that they were both really excellent in the way that they portrayed themselves. I thought that the if you want to quote unquote brother of him, the Freddie, I thought he was great too. He was so into everything that was going on. He was so supportive of what was happening, even when one of my scenes that I really appreciated was when he was washing dishes and Billy was missing. This is when he first turned into Shazam. And Shazam comes up to the window. He's like, "Shut up, don't say anything." And Freddy throws off his parents so that he can go out and learn what the hell's going on. I really enjoyed that scene. I thought that was great in the beginning. And Freddy is so supportive of this brother that he just met, but he is so infatuated with the superhero lifestyle. He's like, "Oh, I gotta know about this." He was probably my favorite character, was Freddy, but the parents were awesome. I really liked them. They loved their foster children. I never am an antagonist person, I feel like. I never really care for antagonist roles. So
that's your weak point, is Mark Strong's Thaddeus.
Yeah. I mean, when they give an antagonist like stereotypical goofy lines, that's where they start to lose me. And he totally had those lines, so I didn't care for him as much. But I thought that the whole Foster family the dynamic was just great. I thought everybody did a great job.
Yeah, I agree with you almost entirely. I love the Foster family. All the pieces work really well. There's not really anyone I don't like in the Foster family. I hadn't really known too much about this movie going in. I thought it looked kind of goofy based on the trailers. But I really do like Billy Batson. I like Asher and Zachary Levi's portrayal of Shazam as, the kid and the adult version, respectively. I think he works really well. I wasn't expecting it, especially Zachary Levi's adult version. I think
he was so good.
Yeah, I was worried it was going to be too goofy, but I don't know. It was endearing. Like, it worked somehow. I don't know. It's kind of intangible how well it worked, but it did. And what I'll disagree with you on is I like our villain, Thaddeus Savannah. Maybe it's just because I like Mark Strong. I know him he was the villain in Kickass. He was Merlin in the Kingsman movies, which I really love the Kingsman movies, and he's great in those. But I think because they give him the first 10 minutes, they give him the backstory of why he's overly evil. Like, he takes it too far, but like his reasoning, you get right off the bat that he had a tough life. This is the only way he knows how to deal with it. I mean, he's a foster kid too. Basically, like he grew up with just a dad who was awful and sounds pretty absent after that initial start, and his brother was awful to him. So to me, until a certain scene, he's somewhat empathetic. But I mean, yeah, towards the end he becomes a little cartoony. But I give the characters overall 4-5. There's not too much weakness here.
I guess when you learn the backstory of our villain here, and you learn the backstory of Billy, you can see the similarities of where they feel like unwanted and unappreciated. So they definitely have that commonality between them. But the way that they go about it, I'm telling you, I'm not one for superhero movies like this, but to see two people that have come from similar backgrounds and then go into these roles, I really enjoyed that. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think that was definitely the character work in this is pretty strong. And I guess we're at the point now when Billy gets his Shazam powers. Everything from here until, there's a few slumps, but here to the end is pretty. I'm pretty with it. The beginning is probably the slowest part, and it was still competent. And now we get to a point where like things are ramping up, and it's really entertaining and funny from here on out. We see Billy run away from some kids who are beating up Freddy, and he gets on the subway. Talking about how SEPTA is in this movie the public transportation
too clean
in Philadelphia, much cleaner, treated much cleaner in this movie than
if you're not from this area and you see that scene where he is in the SEPTA, I have to say, I apologize. That is not realistic whatsoever.
We keep saying SEPTA. For people who don't know, SEPTA is the subway system.
It's not realistic whatsoever.
And it was, but there was some things realistic. They had the Market Frankfurt line was a poster that was up behind the wall. That's like the actual name of that subway system. Like that's actually one of the lines that run there. So they did their accuracy as far as location.
They definitely had the location things in there. Yeah. They had a lot of names of this area that were familiar, so I did like that too.
So the subway does this weird transportation thing, like it did to our antagonist at the beginning of the film. It did with the car. That does the same thing with the subway, and he shows up at Shazam, the wizard's lair, and he's looking decrepit as fuck. He's looking worse than ever, and he walks up to the wizard, and the wizard starts saying all these weird things to him. He's like, "Oh, you are the chosen one, and hold my staff, and you will gain my powers." And so
they lost me here a little bit. I don't like corny stuff like that. This was definitely too, like, run-of-the-mill, by-the-book wizard. Like, it's stupid.
Well, I like that his first reaction is, "I'm sorry, man, I don't have any money." Like, he thinks he just got off on the wrong subway stop because it's like this dark, horrible alley and this crazy-looking, homeless-looking guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Depending, like, no matter where you are in this country or anywhere where there's a subway system with creepy people, like, you understand this feeling. So
oh yeah, this guy. Like Shazam at this point, in the movie he's got to be thousands of years old, but he looks thousands of years old. His beard is crazy looking. He's got like this wild look. He keeps shaking his stick with a glowing rock at the end of it and be like, "Grab my staff and I will give you my powers." And this is getting good laughs for the audience. I'm with it here. So he does it. I don't know, like, I guess he just, I don't know. He tells them a good story. He throws like some magic imagery around about how there was once a hero named Shazam that had all our powers, and he turned evil and unleashed the 7 deadly sins. We get a bunch of exposition about how the 7 deadly sins came to be the enemy of Shazam and the wizards, and he's the last wizard. So he gives him the powers. He says Shazam. He turns into Zachary Levi, and then Jamon Hansu disintegrates into dust, and he's gone. So now we're with big Shazam. Now we're with Zachary Levi, Billy Batson. And this is when he goes back. He convinces Freddy that It's him, but he's turned into a superhero. And this is the best stuff in the movie for me. It's pretty long. It's like 15-20 minutes of a mix of montages and just him testing his powers out.
Oh, so great.
Yeah, like, so they do like the flying test, they do like the laser eye test. But one of the first things they do is he goes to like a convenience store and someone's getting robbed there, and they shoot him, and they're like, oh, he's bulletproof, because he just bounces off. He's like, whoa, and he hands the gun back to him, and they just keep shooting him, but he's fine.
Freddy is capitalizing on this by putting it on YouTube. Like, this is his breaking point. Like, he's so excited about it. I love it.
Yeah, Freddy is like kind of a weird nerd at school, but now he's got like his friend is a
superhero. Like,
yeah, this is like the second best thing he could have. The best thing obviously would be him as a superhero, but like now that his friend he's recording all these videos of them like lighting him on fire to see if he's fireproof.
This was a really good montage, I have to say. I really enjoyed that too.
Yeah, like an abandoned warehouse, which definitely exists in Philly. I can attest to that. This looked like a place you would drive by. And he's like punching like pillars out of walls to see how strong he is. I like all the fly tests where he kind of floats for a second and then he falls back. Like, there's a lot of good those. But yeah, this whole montage scene is really good. Until the point where Billy is Billy again. He's the kid, and Freddy, and they're walking down the hallway in school. They get picked on by the bullies, and Freddy, kind of out of line, is like, oh yeah, I know. They keep saying dumb names for him. I know Sparky Fingers. I know I know what the Crimson Flash or
the
something.
Comedy was on point at this point. Like, it really could have went downhill with the comedy, but the names and just the way he was rolling these names off his tongue, like, that was so great.
Yeah, no one's calling him Shazam yet. They're all calling him stupid. I like Sparky Fingers. Like, it's a bunch of dumb names like that, because he shoots. That's one of his big
Flash
things.
And all this shit like that. It was
that's
really
one of his
funny.
big things.
Yeah.
He shoots lightning, so like it has to be something lightning related. And we didn't mention he's constantly in this red suit. I don't know. He just can't take it off, I guess. Like, whenever he transforms, he's in this cartoonish red Shazam suit that I guess he probably was in the comics. That makes it that's another good visual gag. And I guess, before we go any further about when he meets the antagonist for the first time, what did you think of the visual and sound of this movie?
I love the sound. They had really good music in this. Unfortunately, I can't remember off the top of my head what songs they had, but they implemented a lot of songs that get you hyped up for the appropriate times, and it was shot really well. I really thought that it looked like something that could happen today, that was like in New York City. Like, I really enjoyed everything. I thought that the suit was super cool. It didn't look really goofy. I thought that everything that was happening really felt like something that could happen now. So I really appreciated that. I would give it a 4 for sure.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's competent. This is probably one of the weaker points for me. It could have to do with their budget being a little bit short of, I think it's like 80 to 100 million, which is, a lot for any movie, but for a superhero movie these days, 200 million is a little more standard. So there's a little shy on that. Some of the problems I had with the visual and sound, we haven't talked about the 7 Deadly Sins. When they come out of Mark Strong, they become these like Gollum-looking creatures, and it looks a little dated. It looks a little old, like maybe 10 years old. I buy it enough, I guess. But
I feel like the whole concept is old, so in order for them to keep it up to date, they had to do something a little different. I guess that makes it like a Ghostbuster-ish, like...
That's kind of what it reminded me of. It kind of looked like that, but it's like, we're at the point where like CG can make things look pretty real, and if they're going to be not real, but it's going to be like a monster, you can still make it look like it's in the root. They just looked a little added in to me. They didn't always come across as. I mean, there were parts where they were effective, but it looked a little cheesy at times. Music wise, nothing really stood out a whole lot to me. I think there was some good musical cues in there, but like I said, I can't really remember either. I don't think it's just not something that sticks. A lot of these movies have good musical cues and stuff, and I think if you look back, I'm a pretty generous grader when it comes to visual and sound, but for this, it was, a little bit short of the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to put modern music or even non-modern music, if you're going to implement popular songs into a feature film, they should be strewn throughout. It shouldn't be like 3 songs in the movie. And I think that that's what this had. It had 3 popular songs that get people hyped up, but the rest of the time, there wasn't anything that was like keeping you going. Not to say that this took away from the movie at all, because it didn't.
No,
But
I'm
yeah,
nitpicking a little bit. Like, as a whole, it worked well.
yeah.
I liked his lightning fingers. As far as like the actual cinematography of how shots were composed, that was actually pretty good. You can tell because it's not just a lot of over the shoulder. Like, there was a little bit more to it than that.
It definitely felt like modern time. That's what keeps me invested in something like this. Like,
Yeah, other than like the Seven Deadly Sin monsters, it didn't feel those felt a little out of place, dated to me, I guess. But everything else felt kept up with it. So yeah, 3.5 for me. But we're at the point now where he after getting into a little squabble with Freddy, we meet the antagonist meets our hero. And he's the only one who could do damage to him because this whole time he's been, getting shot, lighting himself on fire, blowing up, and he's been trying to jump over buildings and like jumping through like glass and shit, and he's been fine. But now Thaddeus Savannah, Mark Strong's character, is actually doing some damage to him, and he's like, only a wizard can hurt other wizards, I guess. So I guess they both have wizard powers. That's what they're going with here.
I have to say, meanwhile, this whole time, I'm literally laughing. Like, this movie is funny. It really is.
Yeah, we're not saying all the jokes here or there, but like, because it's hard to even remember them all. But like, and it's not even just jokes; it's just they're funny.
I'm just continuously chuckling at these little blurbs that they're putting in through Zachary Levi. I think Zachary Levi is a great person to play this role. Like, he does a really good job.
They had a lot of people auditioning for this role. Do you know who the other frontrunner was?
Mm-mm.
And it would have ruined this movie, in my opinion. John Cena.
What?
They were interviewing a lot of other smaller time actors.
There's no way that John Cena could have pulled this through the way that Zachary Levi does. Only in the aspect that Zachary Levi is very believable to be this kid's adult version.
I think he's good because you don't think of him as someone else. Like, other than Chuck, if you don't watch Chuck, like, what do you really know Zachary Levi in as? I'm sure he's been in other things, but like that's probably his biggest role. But nothing that's like defining.
He's
like,
a funny,
like John Cena, you see John
guy.
Cena,
it's perfect.
and it's John Cena. Like, there's no doubt John Cena is John Cena. But Zachary Levi can kind of blend into another character a little bit.
He was a good pick. I'm glad that they picked him through this because he really solidified this for me.
So Mark Strong's Thaddeus puts a hurt on Shazam. Shazam gets away by saying Shazam. We didn't mention Shazam says Shazam, and he turns into the kid or turns into the adult, whatever he's not at the time. That's like his transformation word. So he gets away, and he finds his mom. The siblings, the other foster kids, are able to help him find his mom. And did you think the mom was going to be dead, or did you think she was going to be a bitch? Because those are pretty much the only two options in this scenario.
That's a good question. I didn't think that.
Because there's no way it was going to be like, oh, she's great, and now he runs off the sunset with his mom while Mark Strong destroys everything. Like, that was never going to happen. So.
I didn't expect her to be so young. As you learn, she was 17 at the time that she had this child. So what was she, like 18 and a half when he disappeared from her?
Well, I think he was probably 4 or 5, so I think she was probably in her early 20s.
Okay. But regardless, I did not expect her to be a young mother that disowned him on purpose. Like, that was a big thing. That scene really got to me. I just felt so bad for him when he learned that he wasn't wanted by his own mother. And that caused him so much distress through his life in the beginning. Like, that took a toll on me, and I felt bad for him. I really felt something for that character, but that mom was a fucking asshole. It felt really bad.
We get the flashback to the carnival and her perspective, and she's kind of tired. And then in his flashback, she's great, and he's great, and everything's great, and then he gets lost. In her flashback, everything's kind of mopey and miserable, and she's frustrated.
And she doesn't
gets
want
lost,
him. Yes.
And then, she sees him with a cop, but instead of coming forward, she just leaves and doesn't want anything to do with him. So she kind of runs away and doesn't ever pursue looking for him. And now she's like she works at a grocery store because she has the shirt, and it sounds like she has an abusive boyfriend. Like, it's not like things have vastly improved for her. She's doing fine.
But this is a good moment for Billy because he understands the situation he's in now is the best he will ever be. So I really like this scene. I like that it gave him validation of what he was doing.
So this is, and that wraps that part up pretty well. That little side plot at the beginning. He now kind of accepts that this foster family is his family. So Mark Strong, in the meantime of all this, has kidnapped Freddy. Freddy's unwittingly led him to their house. Him and the sin creatures kidnap all the kids, take him to this carnival, and this is where this is like the final showdown spot. And Shazam, in order to try to defeat the carnival people, he has this weird flashback, and I didn't see this coming. I don't know if this is part of the Shazam lore of how it works. It kind of makes sense when I think about it, like how Shazam the Wizard at the beginning was alone and they had all those empty seats and all those other people died. But he takes the staff from Mark Strong, he gets it away from him, and has everyone all of his foster siblings put their hands on the staff, and they all say Shazam, and all of the foster siblings turn into Shazams. They turn into superheroes. They all turn into adult versions of themselves, but still kids, like at heart, like he is. And now he's got like a whole team to fight Mark Strong and the Seven Deadly Sins. Did you see that coming?
No, I didn't, but I'm really glad that it did, and I like a lot of the characters that played those roles. We were talking about this afterwards. I don't know how many people that listen to this podcast have seen My Cousin Skeeter from the 90s, but
not me.
Something
you've seen that I haven't seen. There we go.
Yeah, so there was this show in the 90s or early 2000s, My Cousin Skeeter, and Megan Good was one of the lead roles in that show, and she was in this. She played Darla as an adult, which I really liked, and the other guy who played the little boy came out to be one of the guys from 13 Reasons Why. So this really brings in a lot of pop culture references now and a lot of people who are famous now. And you wouldn't expect that. And I really...
Famous in quotes. I mean, like...
Okay.
It's not like they turn into Brad Pitt. Like they turn into D-list...
You're right, but these are things that people reminisce with. So I really appreciated that, and it was a turn I was not expecting, but I'll tell you, I really liked that point, and I really liked how all of those people worked together for the common good of Shazam. Like, I just really enjoyed that.
I think the most famous of the new Shazam, of like the Shazam alter egos, like adult alter egos, is Adam Brody. Is Freddy's adult version.
I just can't believe that's him. Like, I need to look this up right now because I can't believe that he played that. Like, that was great.
Adam Brody.
It's so great.
I always think of him as like
he's from the OC.
Why do you have to name all these TV shows? This is a movie podcast. You say all these movie or TV shows people are from. He's the assistant in Thank You for Smoking. Like, that's what I know him from. Like, I know I've seen him in other stuff, but when I think of Adam Brody,
Body, I just looked him up right now as we're talking.
At least that's a movie. Yeah, so there you go.
No, this group of adult Shazam friends. Like, I loved it. It was so great. I was not expecting it whatsoever.
Yeah, and they're all learning their powers too. You got Darla has super speed. Freddy can fly. Pedro's got super strength. So they all have their different things, and they're all fighting off different sins. And we get the final face-off: Mark Strong versus Zachary Levi. So Billy versus Thaddeus, and this is a small weak point in the movie. There's this bigger theme with the 7 deadly sins. He's like, oh, which one never comes out? And we don't know which one doesn't come out because there's the 7 deadly sins are not named. They're all like these.
It's very difficult to tell.
They're all these blobs. Like, you can tell which one Gluttony is. Gluttony's the fat one.
That's
right?
where I come into. Yeah, I hate like how often the 7 deadly sins are brought into a movie theme.
I just don't like how it wasn't clear which ones were which, because Gluttony is obvious. I think Lust is probably the one with the giant tongue. We learned earlier that Pride was the one with the 4 arms, but other than that, I mean, it was hard for me to tell. Basically, the point is, the one that never comes out of Mark Strong is Envy, because I guess he was envious that he never got to be the Shazam powers.
He never had a family.
Yeah. Well, no, none of them had a family, though. It's not like he's envious of Shazam. Well, I guess he has this foster family. His family didn't love him, I guess. And he also probably wondered why he wasn't good enough. But the point is, Mark Strong's Envy, and when Envy comes out of him, that's the last 7 deadly sin to come out of his eye thing. He loses his power, because the only reason he has these superpowers is because he's got the 7 deadly sins in him, and when all 7 come out to do other things, he becomes just a guy. So, you know, the last sin comes out of him. Zachary Levi defeats him. They go back to the park, and they're able to defeat. What's like the final thing to do to defeat them?
So they're in the carnival, and he has to get that last little gargoyle. I don't know what the fuck it is. This last little thing out of him, and one of the best scenes is when I'm laughing about it now. That should show what it means to me.
Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
When
they're floating across from each other.
And what's the guy's name? The antagonist.
Mark Strong is
given
Thaddeus
this like
Savannah.
Extreme spiel about how he's the worst person ever, and Zachary Levi can't fucking hear him because he's too far away. Oh my god, it's so funny.
That's the part that's really shot. Well, he's giving his monologue. He's like, and once I have control, and then it cuts back to Zachary Levi. He's like, and he just sees him floating there, like, hundreds of feet away. He's like, "Are you monologuing? I can't. I don't know what you're." And then it cuts back to him, and then I will have all of it. And then it keeps cutting back and forth between them.
I'm laughing right now because the complete awareness of what's going on is just so great. Like, I love that they put that in there.
You were laughing probably the hardest in the theater at that part. You were dying.
Good. It's so good.
Okay, so I remember how they catch him. He gets the staff, and he gets the eye out of Mark Strong, and he like sucks them all back up.
Because they have to pull Envy out of him to be able to have 0 gargoyles inside of him.
Right, once Mark Strong is gargoyleless, they can suck them all back up into the eye. And they can suck him into the ball and protect the ball, and now they're safe. So that's pretty much the end. You see, and then you get like a little end scene where Shazam shows up at the school for Freddy, and he's like, "Oh, this is my friend," and then everyone's like all impressed because before he promised he would show up and he didn't.
Poor
and then
Freddy.
you see from the neck down a guy who's all muscly, and it's a Superman suit, so it applies. Oh, I brought my friend Superman. I'm like, unnecessary tack on, but all right, fine. so Shazam and Superman show up at this kid's school on Freddy to help to show that Freddy's
But they're all
cool.
superheroes now.
Yeah, now they all have the powers. So I looked it up. We left. We had to pee. But there was 2 post-credit scenes, kind of like how a Marvel movie would do. The first one is Savannah's imprisoned, and he meets this caterpillar creature named Mr. Mind, who must be another character from... I looked him up. He's like a little inchworm kind of guy, but he's super smart. So he must be like a villain leader enemy of Shazam. So implying, oh, there's going to be Shazam versus the worm creature. I don't know, whatever. And then the second post-credits scene is Shazam trying to see if he can talk to fish. And then he's like, oh, this power's stupid. And because he couldn't do it. And, that's like an Aquaman reference.
Is Aquaman Marvel or DC?
Aquaman is DC.
Oh, okay. So I was super surprised. Maybe other people are not, but I was super surprised this was a DC movie. I had no idea. I thought this was a standalone.
No, and like DC, especially lately, has been known for their much darker films for the most part.
You can compare this movie to like what we were discussing earlier, The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises or whatever. Like, this is really opposite.
To be fair, those were the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy was made before DC started trying to compete with Marvel on a basis of franchising these, crossover characters. Those three Batmans are more like standalones. They're kind of like...
I know, as you'll hear later on in this particular podcast, this seems like a very Marvel-based podcast of the people that are into this, but...
not exactly.
This
Only my
DC
mom is really the...
movie, like, I was really into this. I would watch this movie again in a heartbeat.
And you don't like movies.
No,
that's crazy.
And I would watch this again because I really felt engaged, and I thought it was hysterical.
So we landed our last rating, the feel and resonance, and it sounds like you really liked it. Number grading, what do you think?
Oh, I'd probably give this movie a 4. I really was, like I said, I was engaged this whole time, and I am not the type of person to be engaged through a friggin' superhero movie, let alone something with this 7 deadly sins that has been so overdone throughout movies in the past. But they really took a spin on this, and they put characters and actors in this that are relevant. And I like I said, I laughed the whole time. That's something really important to me. So I have to give this movie a good rating because I would watch this again. No problem.
Yeah, resonance and feel, I'm definitely on board with it. I give it a 4.5, actually. I think this is better than, I always say, the sum of its parts. How is this? Because that's what this rating is to me, is you add everything together from this movie. Is it better, worse, or the same as what it should be? And I think this is even better than it should be. It's got good characters that are solidly acted, but everything else is paint by, like, the plot is paint by numbers, the visual and sound, there's some good moments, but it's nothing really spectacular, and yet I really like it way more than I guess I should, or thought I would.
How do you feel about the part with the wizard in it?
See, I thought it was going to be campy and corny, but I don't know. It was, but I kind of rolled with it. I was like,
that's where it lost me a little bit, was that whole part with the wizard coming in.
I mean, that first third, I guess, is probably we should say, this is a long movie. This is 2 hours, 15 minutes. This is a long movie. But, like, yeah, that first half hour is probably the weakest for me. But I still like Billy, and, like, it's dumb. Like, okay, you have your enemies, you keep them in statues in your palace, and there's a ball of energy across the room that if someone grabs it, they all get released, and your test is to have them get really close to touching it.
Like, I was excited when I saw that the kid that touched the ball of bad energy, that he came in later. Like, I was excited about that.
No, I figured at the beginning that when they were showing that, I was like, okay, this guy's got to come back, obviously. I figured it would be the antagonist. That's just from watching, a lot of movies. Like, if you're going to introduce something in the first bit, it's going to come back. I didn't expect it to come back that early.
And you weren't expecting his dad to be alive.
No, there's a lot of things about the antagonist I wasn't expecting. And I guess that's, even though it felt paint by numbers at time, it really, and that's why I give it a 4 or 5 for Resonance Feel, because even though it feels like paint by numbers, it sings. It really, like, I don't know why. I don't know if it's the charisma of it all, or like it's just the right combination of things. But yeah, I really liked how everything came together, and I think it's better than it ought to be. But I guess overall, we've pretty much talked about the whole thing. Nicole, would you recommend Shazam?
Oh, definitely would. I think if you are a DC fan, if you are a Marvel fan, if you are like my mom, who is a Zachary Levi fan,
You're,
seriously,
you're a Chuck fan.
like, you're a Chuck fan.
To all our Chuck fans, to our Chuck fan out there.
I can tell you that I am not particularly a fan of any of those things there, but as a superhero movie, I was completely engaged. I had a great time. It's something that really spoke to me. I laughed the whole time. I would completely recommend this movie to anyone who has children, by yourself. It was a good movie.
Yeah, it's
sure.
PG-13, and I think that's the right rating. There's a couple curse words here and there, nothing overly sexual. I think it's a good family movie. Kids all the way to 8, 7 years old and up probably enjoy this, and get most of it. So it's a recommend for me too, and I was not expecting to recommend it. I thought it was gonna be too campy, too kiddie for me. It's not. It's really good.
It's a great surprise. You weren't expecting that feeling, but it's a great surprise to be excited about this one.
Yeah, I'm really happy that I like it as much as I did. I kind of went in with slightly folded arms, and I came out laughing pretty hard. So, Shazam's a good movie. It's a surprise winner from someone who doesn't watch any superhero movies and someone who hasn't watched a DC movie since 10 years.
Don't let that fool you. Don't let the DC universe fool you into what you're thinking about this. Honestly.
And that's another. So, DC has been known to be darker in general than the Marvel universe. Marvel has been really good at balancing legitimate action and, stakes with the comedy. This is, the complete opposite of a DC movie up to this point. It's not, even the dark stuff here isn't, it's comedic dark. The Seven Deadly Sin creatures are creepy looking, but they're not, at no point are you, quaking or really worried about them.
No, you know what? I have to say, the very first time that we have the young antagonist in there, God, I can't remember his name, but whatever. When we have him in that...
Thaddeus Savannah.
Yeah, when we have Thad in this creepy area with these Seven Deadly Sin statues talking to him, I have to admit, I was a little creeped out. It was a little scary, but it was a good feeling because I felt something. It was creepy.
Because I felt something.
Yes.
That's the thing is, this is a movie... DC went from being way more gritty and dark than the Marvel universe to this movie is way more fun and silly, but still good than the Marvel universe. So, we've exhausted it. Superhero movie fans will like it. People who don't watch superhero movie films
obviously,
will like it.
yes.
It's just a good movie. Give it a chance. So if you haven't seen it, if you're listening to this giant spoiler review, I hope you've taken the time. But if not, it's still, even knowing all this, I think it's still going to be really fun. So that's our review of Shazam. Coming up this week, we have the long-awaited Pet Sematary review. We've been talking about it for 2 weeks at least now, and that'll be a good one. That'll come out Thursday, and then I think this month we are going to do another streaming movie. I think it's got to be streaming somewhere, but it's the 15th anniversary of Shaun of the Dead. Which came out in April. Mama Kay, I won't give away everyone else's position, but Mama Kay is a big fan of Shaun of the Dead, so I'm sure she'll be on that one. I'll be on, and we'll have at least one of our other co-hosts. And then towards the end of April, we got Endgame coming out. May is going to be packed, and we'll probably get some more streaming reviews in this month too. And if you guys see something you want us to check out, Films with the Women in My Life on Facebook.
Let us know.
Films Women Pod on Twitter. You can reach out to myself or Jess, our other co-host, on Instagram. So yeah, that's our. Anything else you have to add before we end the show?
No, I am so glad that I got to review this one. I had a great time with it.
And until next time, everyone, this is Brennan saying, enjoy your movies.
Thanks for listening to Films with the Women in My Life. If you enjoyed being a listener in our life, subscribe to us on iTunes. Please leave a review as it helps more people find the show. Like us on Facebook at Films with the Women in My Life. Follow us on Twitter at FilmsWomenPod. And check out our website, filmswiththewomen.libsyn.com. That's filmswiththewomen.libsyn.com. Original music for the show was created by Ian Burke. Original artwork created by Nicole D'Alessio. This show is produced by Brennan Snyder. Thank you again for listening and enjoy your movies.